Alright, so it is now Sunday. I didn't do anything yesterday after the event to the car. I was kind of over it for the time being. Figured I'd wait till today with some daylight, go back through, look at the wiring harness, make sure everything was hooked up properly, which for the most part it seems to be. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to hook my computer up to the Megasquirt ECU. That should give me readouts of kind of like what's going on, you know, what sensors are doing what. I'm used to AEM stuff. AEM has their own program for this, whereas Megasquirt, like other people make programs to work with Megasquirt. So I'm trying one out. If I can't get it working, hopefully Keegan said he'd come by and give me a hand. He knows this stuff a lot better than I do, but hopefully I can figure it out. Basically what's happening is the car starts on starter fluid, the fuel pump's coming on, so the fuel oil has to be getting fuel. I don't see anything obstructing that. So the injectors aren't working. Basically how it works is the injector should have power all the time with the key on, and it should ground out as a signal to open and fire, essentially. The ECU should control that. Right now, with the key off, they have ground on both sides, and with it on, they have power on both sides. So they're either closed or open. It started and ran, but either, you know, something shorted out on the install or something's going on with the computer, I don't know, but hopefully I can figure it out. All right, so essentially I'm just going to, got my laptop hooked up to the Megasquirt. I'm gonna try to see if I can look into the Megasquirt and see what's going on, see if maybe the map sensor is not getting any reading from the vacuum line, I haven't hooked that up right, or something simple like that. It could be something fried in the ECU, which I really hope it's not, because it's either buy another $1,000 plug and play or buy Megasquirt 2 and have to rewire the motor, both of which are going to keep me off the track for a little while, and I don't want that. After driving Ben's Miata, I'm like real pumped to go drive, so I'm hoping I can figure it out. Wish me luck. The best thing to do when troubleshooting on a different day is make sure that your issue is still the same, make sure nothing's changed. So what I'm going to do is I've got my starter fluid, I'm going to make sure it still starts on starter fluid. For all we know, it could have fixed itself, which doesn't happen a lot, but it happens, so you know, we could be hopeful. But yeah, we're gonna make sure it starts on starter fluid, so first step. Alright, well it still starts on starter fluid, so that's a good sign. I heard some weird noises when it started up, so I'm a little worried about that now. Guess we'll see what happens. Alright, so, man, I say that a lot, don't I? Alright, so basically the Megasquirt is not wanting to connect to my computer for some reason. I downloaded a tuning system to use and it's just not working. I'm gonna check the actual hard wiring stuff now, injector wiring and stuff, and see if maybe something's wrong there. Life, cars, they're horrible, but they're awesome. I mean, they're cool. They're a headache. When they work, they're sick though. All right, so this is where things start to get really weird. This is a power probe. Basically, you hook it up to the battery and you can either power or ground circuits, and it works as a multimeter, so it'll tell you where there's power, where there's ground, resistance. All right, with ignition off, we have ground on one side, ground on the other side. We'll put the ignition on. We now have power on both sides. So that's completely wrong. This comes with a ground, so you can power a circuit. Hook the ground up to one side of the injector and hook this up to the other, and you can hear the injector click. You guys probably can't hear it at all, but it's hard to hear over the click of this. But so the injectors are working, it's just the wiring to them is not right, so that's what I got to figure out. Pull the ECU out now so we can pop the case open. This lights up. Ignition on, off. It's kind of fancy. So obviously before we do this, I should definitely disconnect the battery. Or with the battery disconnected, just 2 screws. Yeah. Miatas are very small and hard to work with. Removing electrical connectors has got to be one of the worst things ever. It's so simple, it's such a pain in the ass sometimes to get certain ones to unclip because they're all different. So it's out. We're going to start by taking the case off. That'll kind of give us an idea of if we can see anything visually burnt on the board, or maybe a broken connection, something that could cause that weird issue we're dealing with. I've never taken one of these apart, so I don't quite know. Oh, that's easy. It doesn't smell burnt, but it's not really the best indication of what's going on in here. I can't see anything visually wrong, so yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna take my ECU over to the shop. John says that he has a little tester, so we can kind of get an idea if, at least on the ECU side, it's outputting and inputting information correctly. If we do that, then we kind of isolate it to the wiring or the ECU, which is what I've been trying to figure out, but I haven't been able to because I don't have the right tools necessary. So shout out if you guys would like to see a tool check eventually. Got some cool tools that might be useful. The shop at daylight. Weird, right?
It's got like, that's why I said it's got like this much clearance between it.
It'll be alright.
Misa, you got a piece of paper?
Yeah, that's perfect.
I don't know why your ignition would be high right now, but it's whatever. And get this out of there.
Is that whatever?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, John. So explain to the viewers here what's going on here.
Well, we're doing a science experiment. This is Keegan's old 3.0 board. I was pretty sure that's the same as your what's inside your PMP board here, and it is. It's just got a 90-degree plug on it. So I don't know why I'm still holding this.
I don't know.
Basically, we're just gonna use this. It simulates the engine turning, so it gives it basically a tach input. And when we give it a really slow one, I'll try to do this. Turn it. You'll see it go into cranking mode eventually. This direction. So there it is in cranking mode. It's just firing the ignition's running. It's firing the 2 injectors, just pulsing them. And then as you get a little faster, there you can see it's like that would be kind of like an idle. I don't have it hooked up to a laptop, so I don't know what the RPM is.
Yeah,
but you can see the ignition's running. It sort of looks like the ignition's just on, so that's not necessarily good. But you can tell the injectors themselves are firing bank, bank, bank. So that's doing what it's supposed to do, and the fuel pump's on. Technically, that should run your motor.
So that means we have a wiring issue.
Yeah.
Most likely.
I would think so.
All right, so this is Keegan's ECU, which we were testing for shits and giggles.
So this one, same thing. We give it a tach signal. It turns the fuel pump on like it should, and the ignition's on, but we're not getting any injector pulses. So it's not gonna run. Up. It ain't gonna run.
It's like broken. All right, so I'm gonna try one more thing before I call it a night. I'm kind of tired today too. I'm gonna get back on it during the week, try to get it done. But took the ECU to John. Based on what we could tell, it seems like it's okay. So we're gonna roll with the idea that it's okay for now and start troubleshooting other stuff like the wiring harness. So what I'm gonna do now is with the ECU out, I'm gonna check and see if I still have the same issue with the power, ground. And if I do, then that obviously rules out the ECU. I should have done this before I even took the ECU to him, but I didn't, so gonna do it now. I'm like real upset that my car's not working, and Taylor's complaining because he got a gouge in his hood from a kayak.
Yes I am.
Does that seem right to you guys? He should be emotionally helping me right now. Basically, I, with the ECU out, did the same tests, and the test came out as it should have done the whole time. It was ground on one side, power on that same side with ignition on, which is normal. That's how it should be. And then nothing on the other side. And the other side would be the trigger ground to turn the injector on. But when I put the ECU back in, then it was power, ground. So I have no idea. I don't know what the hell is going on because we tested the ECU and it appeared to test correctly. So that seemingly is the only thing that could be the problem. So I'm gonna have to dig more into it tomorrow night. I'm too tired tonight. So John just called me. He was thinking about it more. It makes sense that with the ignition on and the car not firing, that the ECU would send power to the other side, because what that'll do is it'll hold the injector closed because it's 12 volts and 12 volts. Whereas if there's any discrepancy on the other side, the injector might open slightly because it's powered. So he said it makes sense that it would be power and power. Troubleshooting, I will tell you, is the worst thing ever, because no matter how much you troubleshoot it, no matter how many times you troubleshooted something, you always find new issues that you're like, how could that possibly have been the problem? I talk about this all the time. It's awful. So yeah, that's where we're at. Again, I say that like 17 million times. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up for tonight. Basically, the next step is to have John bring his computer, and we will use his tuner studio to pull up the tune and take a look at it and kind of see what's going on with it. Hopefully we can figure something out. All right, so it is now Monday after work. It was very frustrating just sitting there all day today, not knowing what it was, going through like whatever I could think of in my head is what it might be. So it still starts. We think we figured out the awful noise. We think it was the plastics for the timing belt hitting the timing belt. They're always like old and broken, and they just kind of get in the way sometimes. So we fixed that, hopefully. Hopefully that was that noise issue. And now we're gonna check for fuel pressure. I just put this fuel pressure regulator in that I have. After the fuel pressure regulator, it just to use the gauge to see what the fuel pressure's at, because we're thinking maybe for some reason it's not getting enough fuel pressure. So that's the next thing to try.
The fuel lines are backwards. And I told them that this morning.
All All right, so we're retarded.
How much I light at?
No, you're good. You don't need to anymore.
Oh.
We're retarded, and the fuel lines, we kind of hooked them up backwards.
You?
No.
Okay, me.
You did the fuel lines. He did the fuel lines. Oh, you can't see them.
I did the fuel lines, but I didn't know, and I asked.
So we think we fixed it. Okay, bye.
Pretty sure.
We stuck my fuel pressure regulator in here just to kind of get a gauge of what the fuel pressure was, and it was like 10 pounds. Now that it's on the right side, it is 42, which is what it should be. The crazy noise was the power steering pump bracket. This is making a weird rattling noise. You can hold it still, it doesn't make noise anymore, so that's a good sign. We hooked the oil pressure gauge up. It has good oil pressure, so that's a good sign. So far, knock on wood, let me find some. This looks like wood, right?
You don't want any knocking.
Knock on wood though. Today was a good day. We'll see what happens next. All right, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna pretend that it is Friday night, like what, 6 a.m.
It's about the same.
and
Skylight.
Yeah, the sun's going down instead of coming up, and we're gonna try to, this is the first startup. It's probably not primed at all.
Ready? Did I have hooked them up? No, I didn't. I hooked them up right this time.
Try,
More starter fluid.
yeah, starter fluid. Do starter fluid with a matte plug tank. Put some more in there.
More?
It should be starting.
How did it start? It definitely didn't have fuel pressure, that's for sure. We ain't got spark now.
All right, so now it runs fine. It was, we think it was the crank sensor was like a little bit too far away from the reluctor wheel. And it wasn't getting a proper reading.
And the fuel lines are backwards.
We already told them that. And I'm gonna make sure it's not reading.
Let it run. What, you got time?
We need to put more fuel in it though. Sure.
Alright, you can turn it off and try to turn it back on, see what it does. I bet you it was that crank sensor, because mine did the same thing.
Moral of the story is, working on cars can be quite the pain in the ass. Basically, the crank sensor had a little bit of metal debris on it, and it was probably a little too far away to be reading right. So that might be why it was intermittent and why it would start sometimes and not others. Maybe we just get it to start and then it would kind of be reading, and that's why it was dying, because it wasn't reading right. But it seems to be working good now. We're gonna
definitely fuel lines.
The fuel lines were definitely a major problem. We probably should have checked that first. So start with the simple stuff. Basically, we jumped to conclusions and we were like, okay, the fuel pump's working, so it's not getting, it's got to be getting fuel to the rail, so it's definitely the injectors. That's the problem, for sure. And then went with this whole roundabout way trying to figure out why the injectors wouldn't be working, when all it was there was no fuel getting to the rail. So check the simple stuff first. Even if it seems like that wouldn't be the problem.
Because we've been around for so long.
Yeah, we overthink it a little bit because we've been doing this for so long. We're like, oh, okay, fuel pump works. It's that everything's got to work. Cool.
It's like women in a relationship.
Yeah, like that, I don't know what that does. I don't even know what that means.
Oh, you will.
So yeah, we're gonna button it up and go take it for a drive. Yay! So the wiring in here was like pretty ghetto. It's not super ghetto, but all those shitty red splice end connectors suck. So I'm gonna have to take it apart and redo it right, but we're fixing it for now so that the wideband works. So we can take it for a quick spin and make sure everything works. So I'm gonna drain the coolant now. We have distilled water and water wetter. So basically in Florida, we don't have to deal with the issue of antifreeze because it never really gets cold enough here for water to freeze. So we just use distilled water and water wetter. Water wetter helps pretty good, and it has the additive for the water pump to be lubricated. So next step.
Plus you want to burn away all the other shit.
Alright, so right now we're letting the car warm up so the thermostat will open. That way we can fill the rest of the system with coolant and let it or water, and let it bleed out. If you do use water, make sure you use distilled water. It doesn't have chlorine and calcium deposits and all that other stuff in it. We're also letting all the other stuff burn off. If you take a motor out or take a manifold off exhaust, when you start it back up, it's gonna smoke like crazy because you're dirty, your hands are oily, and you got that all over the manifolds and the block and everything. So don't freak out unless it's bad. It's normal. So we're just gonna let it burn off, let it warm up, and make sure it's full of coolant, and then go take it for a drive. All right, so first test drive was a success. Everything worked great. There's some weird noises from some stuff I gotta fix, but basically I need like another few days to go through the wiring that's kind of janky and clean up the gauges and all that stuff. But otherwise, the car works. It works. I'm real happy. So drifting soon. No more working on cars. Working on cars sucks. Right, Marco? Right. Sucks. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. Miata's pretty much ready to go. I've just got to finish up a couple of things with the gauges, doing the wiring and stuff, which I mentioned earlier. Just kind of go through it, get some tires mounted. I'm gonna go drive a private event this weekend. I'm pretty excited about that. That'll be a good shakedown for the car. I'll be able to like get an idea of what the car needs, you know, for me to improve it. So that's next. Be prepared for that. It should be really fun. We're gonna hang out, hopefully hot lap the skid pad. We're gonna barbecue, drift, have a good time. So stay tuned for that. It's gonna be sick. So as always, thank you guys for subscribing. You guys are awesome. All your feedback is super appreciated. It helps so much. I mean, I wouldn't be able to make these videos better and better without your guys' help. So if you have any comments or suggestions, let me know as always, and thanks for watching.